And so what seems to cohere right now is what I consider to be a secular scientific definition and a classical traditional Buddhist definition. So let me give you the secular scientific definition with which most of us are aware of. And that is intentional awareness of the present moment with acceptance. So when we engage in mindfulness meditation, we're training our mind intentionally to be in the present moment, but with a sense of openness and acceptance of the present moment. And of course, acceptance is not the same as liking the present moment, nor is it the same as, passively resigning yourself or tolerating the present moment. Full-on acceptance of the reality of the present moment. So that's the secular or scientific definition. More or less, there are different flavors of that definition, but they all seem to revolve around intentionality, present moment awareness, and acceptance. And you can also bring compassion into that definition. Now, the classical definition is one that is encapsulated by a singular word, and that is remembering. And I know I've said this before, but for me, it bears repeating. That one word, remembering, is easy to forget. And in the context of classical teachings on mindfulness, remembering is about remembering the instructions, remembering the skills that liberate the mind from suffering. So it's more than breathing in the present moment. It's more than being aware of thoughts and distractions. It has to do with the whole body of teachings that support us to understand our mind, influence our mind and our actions, and ultimately free our minds from suffering and distress. So this is a very wide-ranging definition. Now, there's a distinction between mindfulness and concentration. As I've mentioned before, concentration is about a single-pointed focus, like just on the breath. And mindfulness, on the other hand, has a wider range of focus, noticing the flow of ongoing experience. So just want to throw that out there. Ways to cultivate concentration, just as we did this morning. Focusing on a singular point, like the breath, and noting, for example, the breath, in, out, or counting. Stabilizing concentration through noting a single object of concentration, like the breath. Mindfulness, I find, is, again, more wide-ranging in terms of some methods we can use to cultivate mindfulness. This is, I think, where it becomes creative and interesting and frustrating and joyful at the same time, perhaps. Ways to cultivate mindfulness is about naming the experience. So you're in your meditation or you're just out in the world living your life, you name thinking, planning, judging, or a particular emotional experience, anger. Now the trick, if there's a trick, and there's no trick, is to not take these experiences personally. And one teaching that I encountered is to say something like, or frame your experience, something like, anger is here, frustration is here, distraction is here, worry is here. So that you don't identify with the experience and tell yourself, I'm worried, I'm X, Y, or Z. So just name the experience. Yeah. So I want to transition now and talk about some what I consider skillful ways of relating to the present moment in and out of mindfulness practice. In my little note here, I say, don't take it personally. So important, so important. We take ourselves so seriously, and that creates this identity, which sets up suffering. So I know everybody does it differently. But for my practice, my most liberating moments when I have gone to that place of reactivity, for example, is when I see myself as an expression of conditioned ridiculousness. And when I can see that, then it just fractures my, identification with anger, judgment, whatever it is that is fueling the reactivity. So here's some skillful ways to relate to the present moment. One is simply attending to the present moment with full-on acceptance, which is about seeing things as they are, not as we want them to be. And that might be called the wisdom dimension of mindfulness, seeing things as they are. That is the wise aspect of mindfulness. So this can be applied, of course, to any phenomena, thoughts, sensations, memories, plans, images, other people, emotions. Also, any general mental state that supports or hinders your process of being present, accepting, and open. So attending is one way of cultivating skillful means in the world. Befriending is another way. I know you've probably heard these terms before. Hopefully I'll touch on something maybe you haven't heard so much applied to mindfulness. Befriending is about being with your experience, of course, in a friendly, open, kind, and compassionate way. Sometimes in mindfulness culture, we say that mindfulness, present-centered awareness, cultivated through meditation, is like two wings of a bird. And the bird needs both wings to fly. One wing is wisdom, understanding things, knowing things as they are, seeing things as they are. The other wing is compassion. Infusing present-centered attention with compassion, the willingness to really be there for your own pain and the pain of other people. So befriending. The next way of relating in a skillful way is letting go. Letting go. At the same time, as I've mentioned in the past, the mind has a lot of tricks it can play. So with letting go, I think one thing to guard against is letting go as a way of dismissing experiences, to sort of bypass the emotional processing that sometimes needs to happen for us to truly be in a state of peace. So it can be a quick fix strategy if we're not careful. At the same time, it can be a sign of psychological healing when we've let go, or when we, like I often say, if you can't let go, let be what's there. And the issue is about, letting go can be about control and avoidance, or it can be about a readiness to move on. Some of you maybe have had this experience. I know I have in my life, where I've repeated the same story that keeps distressing me or is connected to a certain complaint or distress until I've gotten tired of hearing. I see some of you smiling. Tired and exhausted of that story. And it's like, as the wisdom teacher Byron Katie says, letting go is an old-fashioned, outdated concept. I don't let go of stories. They let go of me when I see the truth. Isn't that a wonderful framing? They let go of me. So in a sense, if you're willing to be open and accepting and seeing the truth, and what is that truth about? Well, we can say it's about all these conditions that we identify with as being all about our little selves. And when we can see that, then we can hopefully more easily let go, or the story can let go of us. So letting go, another way of skillfully relating to the present moment. Here's a word I wanted to add to the mix, and I was thinking about some other descriptors, and I came up with this word that I rarely hear mentioned in living a mindful life, and that is a way of relating to life, enjoying. Sometimes we identify a mindful practice with, plunging to the depths and greeting your shadow and being connected to your anger and embracing pain and despair. And that is indeed a large part of the path, especially at the beginning. And at the same time, I believe a skillful way of relating to our life mindfully is by enjoying life. Now, enjoyment takes on a lot of connotations, particularly in Western culture. I would like to think that joy is a natural outcome of being present with acceptance and compassion. It doesn't have to look like some stereotypical, ecstatic, blissful experience. It often is not. Not that there's anything wrong with ecstatic, blissful experiences. That's great, You go to a dance floor with pounding music and you kind of let go of your preoccupations and move your body, you might access that. But at the same time, I like to think that there's a quiet and relatively still experience of joy that comes with, again, seeing things as they are, where everything is exactly, our experience is everything is exactly as it should be. And I don't need to add any or subtract any ingredients to my experience. That, I think, is another quality of joy. The ancient Persian poet Rumi says, "Love asks us to enjoy our life. Love asks us to enjoy our life, for nothing good can come of death. Who is alive, I ask? Those who are born of love." Again, love asks us to enjoy our life, for nothing good can come of death. Who is alive, I ask? Those who are born of love. And that's pretty ecstatic. And yet at the same time, it's really beyond life and death. He's not denigrating the death experience. At least my take is that he's, talking about how we die every day when we're not connected to love. And in a religious context, it might be God. In a spiritual context, it might be, the web of being. However you frame it, it is there for you, this love. But this is love with a capital L, not love with a small L, like when you eat that dark chocolate gelato and you smile. Not that kind of love. This is the love that is always there, the spaciousness, the connectedness, the sense that everything is as it should be, and you have a place in that web of life. Yeah. I heard that squirrels and possums don't have these preoccupations. They just live their lives. That's a little North Carolina wisdom for you. Some of our friends told us that, our furry friends, but I digress. So, any comments about that? Anything maybe that touched you that you'd like to reflect upon? We can take a few minutes this morning. I appreciate your attentiveness. Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to say anything. And actually, I think you're waiting. Maybe I'm waiting. I had a question to pose to you, and the question is this. because, all these concepts and all these ideas and ways to relate and psychology and spirituality. And sometimes it comes to this: how do we draw upon our practice when dealing with difficult people, particularly those who are angry or directing their anger toward us? That's the question I pose to you all. What is the skillful way to draw upon, the teachings and our practice to deal with the difficult people in our lives? And I realize, we're often our most difficult person, but we often deal with others who can be really challenging.